way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am grateful every moment, every day. There may be walls, there may be roadblocks for every step, but I can choose to take a higher path each day. And now I know that what I thought was safe and sound was only habit and regret that held me down. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am kinder every moment, every day. And I'm more loving every moment, every day. I will surrender every moment, every day. Gratitude before me, gratitude behind me, gratitude to the left of me, gratitude to the right of me, gratitude above me, gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around me. I'm so grateful, 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 I'm so grateful. Gratitude before me, gratitude behind me, gratitude to the left of me, gratitude to the right of me, gratitude above me, gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around me. I'm so grateful, 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 I'm so grateful. Gratitude before me, gratitude behind me, gratitude to the left of me, gratitude to the right of me, gratitude above me, gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around me. I'm so grateful, 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 gratitude all around me. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So grateful. Grateful. So grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Grateful. So grateful. I'm so grateful. So grateful. Grateful. So grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so very grateful. So blessed. So grateful. And every day I start my day by saying how I'm grateful. Grateful. I'm so grateful. Every day I say grateful when I go to sleep. You are seen, you are heard, you are loved for who you are. You are enough, you are complete, you are love. You are seen, you are heard, you are loved for who you are. You are enough, you are complete, you are love. You are love, you are love, you are love. I am seen, I am heard, I am loved for who I am. There is nothing I need to change. I am love. I am love. I am love. I am love. I am seen. I am heard. I am loved for who I am. There is nothing I need to change. I am loved. I am loved. I am loved. Yeah. I am loved. I am seen. I am seen. I am heard. I am heard. I am loved for who I am. I am enough. I am enough. I am complete. I am complete. I am loved. I am loved. I am seen. I am loved. I am heard. I You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God.
Tu es l'image de Dieu.
I hold you in my heart.
Tu es l'image de l'amour.
You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God.
Tu sei la luce di Dio.
I hold you in my heart.
Tu sei il volto dell'amore.
You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of love. The face of love. I hold you in my heart. You in my heart. You are my family. You are my family. You are the face of love. The face of love. You are the face.
We are heading into a phenomenal workshop. I am very excited to present. This one is titled, How to Become a Johnny Appleseed of New Thought. Reverend Paula Langguth Ryan, an INTA board member, but more importantly for this particular time is her using her 14 years working in rural Kenya to show us how to spread New Thought teachings to disenchanted Christians, the unchurched, and the 20-something youth. Hands-on advice on how to help third world children of God discover the divine power within, and guidance on how to transform missionary work from a handout to a handout. We have been talking about how to make a difference today. Paula has served as CEO of New Thought Channel. She is the author of Giving Thanks, The Art of Tithing, featuring a foreword by Reverend Catherine Ponder. And she serves as senior minister for the Village Gathering, a Course in Miracles-based spiritual center with missionary outreach to Kenyan pastors. As a student of New Thought for more than 40 years, Paula brings her insights about oneness wherever she is called to speak. I'm looking forward to Paula Langguth Ryan. Paula?
Thank you, Jackie. I have so enjoyed this entire conference. All the speakers have been amazing. Thank you for having me join you guys. So I'm going to do things a little different than the other speakers have. I'm going to make it open for questions throughout, because the work that I do, I want to make sure that I'm sharing with you what you most want to know about. So I want to use that time to share that. I'm very passionate about the work I do in Kenya. I was so excited to hear Mike Samper speak. It's been a long time since I've seen him. He and his wife, Elizabeth, joined me on my second trip to Kenya, and we did an ordination ceremony. Technically, we did two for African Successful Christian African Ministries was the name of the organization. And we did ordinations in Nairobi and ordinations in Mombasa. And one of the first graduating classes of CSL practitioners at CSL Kenya last year was Christine Kamsala. I always have a hard time pronouncing her last name, who then joined us for the Mombasa ordination as well, because she was so moved by what we were teaching. But she was one of the ministers that we ordained in 2010, and then in 2020 at the I guess it was technically still 2019. No, I'm mixing my years up. 2020 CSL Kenya conference. She was one of the CSL practitioners that was graduated there. So New Thought teachings, we plant the seeds and they come around. But what I want to share about Kenya also can be used for our own churches. And I can give us some examples of churches that have used these principles even before I ever did work in Kenya. They've been using those principles to reach the unchurched, to better serve their community and demonstrate principles of New Thought throughout their communities, to reach the younger generations. A lot of times when I speak in Kenya, if there's teenagers or 20-something people in the audience, they'll come up to me afterwards. They're so used to 6-hour churches on Sunday. Anybody who was raised Southern Baptist would completely feel quite at home in a Kenya evangelical church, because it's, an hour and a half of praise and worship, an hour and a half of the service. You take a fellowship break, or you go home for lunch for 3 hours, and then you're back for another 3 hours on Sunday. So it's a pretty active church community, and teaching people principles of New Thought, that, when they start talking about Satan, being able to go, hold on a second, is God in everything? Is God all powerful? So what's this thing you call Satan? And to get people to start to think about the oneness instead of preaching the oneness. But these kids will come up to me and they'll be like, you don't preach, you teach. And that's how we reach, even here at home, the 20-something generation. They don't want the preaching so much. They don't want us to go through the 5 basic principles over and over again. It's like watching Natalie Dupre cook, where she was always, every single episode, she would show you how to chop an onion. You learn enough about chopping onions. You learn enough about the principles. What they want is, how do I put this to work in my own lives? A lot of Christianity here at home, a lot of Christianity overseas. The whole premise is, you're going to have a better life in your next lifetime. Well, folks who are living in Kenya, a good chunk of which are in rural Kenya and are at, let's put it this way, a registered nurse in Kenya makes the equivalent of $300 a month, just to put it in context. But a lot of their expenses are the same. So the economic index is a whole lot different. So to tell someone your good's going to come to you in the next life doesn't really help them. And so they'll speak the platitudes of Christianity, but they're working day by day through things that we can't even fathom here, as far as the poverty. So when you look at the way we're teaching principles, if, like Mike Stamper talked about earlier, we don't want to come in with assumptions of what the people in our communities need, or the people in third world countries or other places where we're trying to do outreach need. What we're looking for is, how do we meet them where they're at with what they need? One of my favorite books that I read before I left for Kenya the first time in 2007 was a book called Dark Star Safari by Paul Thoreau. And I wanted to point out 3 things. So he talks throughout the book. It's a beautiful book about traveling around all of Africa that I highly recommend to everyone. Dark Star Safari by Paul Thoreau. But he talks about, in Sudan, he came across these beautiful buildings that were empty, that were built as a school. Because a lot of times what happens is, yes, we'll give you money to build a school, but we don't give you money to staff it. We don't give you money to help build the schoolrooms out. We don't give you money to hire teachers and to keep it going, or create scholarships. We don't give money to teach financial responsibility or even just basic accounting to the people that are going to run the school. So a lot of times the schools just wind up being empty. In Ethiopia, housing was built for folks and they were never lived in. A decade later, they're still empty, looking pretty much brand new, except for where they're decaying. Why? Because they didn't ask the people what they needed. Instead, they built houses with steps going up into the houses, and no one would move into them because they couldn't bring their goats into the houses. And so Paul asked, well, why would you have wanted to bring your goats into the houses? And the man replied, so they wouldn't get eaten by the hyenas. Not a common experience here in Denver. We have a coyote that wanders through the neighborhood, will eat your small dogs or your rabbits. But, over there, that's a real concern. In South Africa, in the midst of the AIDS and HIV crisis, a bunch of missionaries built these gorgeous hospices, like 6-story hospices, never used. Why? Because the people wanted to be cared for at home. So instead of teaching proper sanitation, healthcare, AIDS containment, that sort of stuff, they built these hospices that never got used. In Kenya, where I work with Pastor George Kaye, who'll be coming to the United States on an R1 visa in the middle of April. He'll be coming till November, that I've worked with since 2007. They started to build a hospital in an area which was known for being a little too far for people to walk to the Bungoma Hospital. So this is a Bungoma West, or the area they call Bukaholo. And they started to build this hospital. They got this wonderful donation from this church down in Texas, not a New Thought church, that wanted to honor a young man who'd passed away. And the stipulation they gave was, they gave $50,000. The stipulation was that they had to use a portion of it to build a fountain with a brass plaque and a brass statue of a bear, and hook it up with a pump and get irrigation to it and water to it somehow, and all of this stuff. So they spent $30,000 of the 50, which is what it cost to put together this dedication piece, because they didn't feel comfortable saying, well, the whole $50,000 is what we need to be able to build the entire hospital. So what we have is a hospital that has the walls, it has the windows holes and the door holes. It had a water tank, but it has since rusted out. But it has the plumb outs for piping. It has the stubbing out, or whatever you call it, for the electrical boxes and everything. But no electricity, no water, no doors, no windows, just walls and a ceiling and concrete floors, and that's it. And that's where one of the churches I go and speak at is located, is at that hospital. So when we're looking at what are we creating for people, not just overseas and in these third world countries, but what are we creating for the people at home? So I want to draw attention to 2 particular churches. They both happen to be Unity churches. One is the Tyler Unity Center in Tyler, Texas, where I know things have changed because of COVID. Things are shut down a little bit. But what they did was they realized trying to teach New Thought principles, not going over so well in the Bible Belt down there. So what they did instead was look at, what does our community need? So they started setting up classes in parenting. They started setting up food banks. They started setting up AA meetings and NA meetings. They started setting up things that the community said they needed. And Max, the former minister there, used to talk a lot about, when I would meet with him, talk a lot about how other churches would say, well, why are you doing this? They're not going to learn unity principles. None of them ever come to church. They don't come to any of the book study classes. It didn't matter to him. What mattered to him was, this was a way for them to reach the community. And so people started coming to the center for different events. And eventually people did start showing up at classes, showing up for church. But that wasn't their main purpose. They weren't trying to build a church. They were trying to build themselves as a part of the community, and it worked fabulously. Another church is down in St. Petersburg, Temple Hayes' church, First Unity Spiritual Center, it's called, in St. Petersburg. And Temple is both a CSL minister and a Unity minister, in addition to being a shaman. And they have a used bookstore, a used clothing store, a used furniture store. They've got all sorts of things like that they do. Then there's a Unitarian Universalist church in Chattanooga that I spoke at years ago, where they have one night a month, their church is available as one of the overflow homeless shelters. So the parishioners cook meals, they set up cots, they have showers that are available. And some nights nobody shows up, which is a beautiful thing, right? That needed the overflow for the homeless situation there. But to pay attention to, how can we best serve the community? Now, move it into a little bit into the missionary stuff itself, okay? So most missionaries go over A, with an agenda, B, they're trying to establish something like the church that wanted to build this hospital, trying to establish something that memorializes them. And it's a joke in Kenya. Pastor George, I made him promise me that I would keep coming back, and I have for 14 years. I've been working with them, so long as they never named a school or any building after me. So instead, when he and his wife had twins, they named them Paula and Paulette. So I guess that was allowable. But if you look at what was happening, is missionaries would come and they always keep themselves separate. And so what we do is what we call service safaris. So we have people that come over and help us when they're guided. That's why Mike and Elizabeth came over to help preach New Thought stuff at churches, or teach New Thought principles, as we would say. And, I eat their food. I live in their home, and it's very surprising sometimes to Kenyans. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. You're not like other missionaries. And that's what I encourage people to do. Don't be like other ministers either. Don't be trying to get the young people to come to church. Instead, meet them where they're at. So many children and teenagers, especially right now, are struggling when their schools aren't open to that interpersonal interaction, to the athletics programs and stuff. They just need people to talk with them. I do a study group out of my home that we're now doing the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the New Testament. And we've got two 20-somethings that come. And I've gone to one of their homes and they've had their friends over, so that we'll have a group of 20-somethings just talking about the issues that are coming up for them. And when you can put them into context of principle and help them do the inner work so that they can heal those parts of themselves that feel abandoned, that feel like they're missing out on major milestones in their life and things like that. But to be just present to where people are at. And I know I seem like I'm jumping around a little bit here because I'm trying to equate the missionary work to the fact that everything we do is missionary work. And the nice thing is our reach is more global thanks to the pandemic, because we're able to do everything virtually now, like this conference, like all of our regular services and classes. So to be able to recognize we can reach out to the unchurched, we can reach out to the younger generation, and we can reach all across the globe. When I first came to Kenya, it was 2007. I had written my book in 2005, Giving Thanks, the Art of Tithing, and Catherine Ponder had written the forward. And so I was giving the book away online as a PDF. And Pastor George Kaye happened to have stumbled across, he was searching for tithing material for his churches. He was a bishop, he had 14 churches underneath him. And so he just wrote and asked me, what would it take for you to come to Kenya and teach tithing the way you teach it? So my congregation paid for my flight and my little $50, I think back then it was $25 visa entrance fee. And I stayed in their home. I ate their meals. We did fellowship at different congregants' homes. We did potlucks at the church. We went door to door to people's homes. This was right after the post-election disturbances, which is Kenyan politeness for people being macheted across the country because of the tribe they belong to. And so we just shared everything, and people donated, and we moved forward things, and we'll get to that in a second about the progression of missionary work. But we managed to just start teaching these principles to people where they're at. A couple who, he and his mom were Catholic, she was not, and she's thinking, I can't stay in my marriage, and getting them to understand, no, just because you go to different churches and you have a different church experience doesn't mean you can't come back together Sunday night and share what you learned at your different churches. It doesn't mean you can't coexist with each other. And I think that's what we're trying to teach with New Thought, is we can all coexist with each other. We can all embrace every bit of ourselves and our differences as long as we're willing to do it authentically. And that's a big piece. People in Kenya are so used to missionaries coming and saying, I'm going to give you money to do this. And then you have to do this with it, even if this isn't the thing that's going to move stuff forward for them. And so one of the things we had to get used to was, We had several schools over the years, started, stopped, moved, built, ended, mostly because of financial issues. We had ministers who couldn't afford to stay in their homes because once a landlord finds out that you're being subsidized by missionaries, they jack up your rent, or hospitalization happens. And if you can't pay your bill in full, they take all of your stuff. It's not like debt collection here that's a little kinder and gentler, even though we might not think so. But to be able to recognize, this is the reality of their life. So if we want to truly reach them with new thought and show them how these principles work, then we have to figure out what is it they most need. So food stability is a big one. Housing stability is a huge one. So when I first started coming, I was the only New Thought game in town. So to be able to share these principles meant I had to use the same sort of approach I do if I'm speaking at a Pentecostal church, if I'm speaking at a UU church, if I'm speaking at a CSL, Unity, UFBL, wherever I'm speaking, to be able to say, okay, let me find the language that works for them. And so we're talking the same principles, but you have to use the language. Like if you've ever watched Joyce Myers, you have to look at that, Satan part and go, she's talking about the ego. You have to be able to translate in your mind to understand. And I know some folks like Donna Christine, who's Reverend Donna Christine, who's with us today in the audience, that, she had the good pleasure of hearing George speak in my place at the CSL Kenya conference when I wasn't able to come over. And what she pointed out was, he starts off really strong with New Thought stuff. And then toward the end, he goes into more of the evangelical. And he does that on purpose, because you have to remember the audience we're speaking to in Kenya, that's what they're used to, is the evangelical. So you have to be able to introduce No Thought teachings in a way that actually fits with what they understand so that we can start to transform that. I remember, we teach this, New Thought Testament interpretation class. Thursday nights, it's taught here at my home. Friday, it's taught virtually, where George is in Kenya and I'm here, so that people who are in Kenya can watch or listen or watch later on. And same here, because we want them to be able to understand the intermingling, the oneness. If God is all powerful, always, all the time, that's an evangelical approach, but it's also a New Thought approach. So you can find that oneness, find the common ground, and that's how we reach the unchurched. That's how we reach everybody. And if you get tired of looking at my happy little face, George wrote a little autobiography called Forward Ever, Backward Never, One Man's Quest to Create Sustainable Kenya, and the amazing things that he's worked on over the years, even before we started working together. And if you want to see that, just go to thevillagegathering.com, and across the top banner, click on the About Us link, and then read on down, if you get bored of listening to me, I guess, or just scroll on down to the bios of George and myself, and you'll see a little link there. And the code to get it for free is INTA 2021. So I'm going to take a deep breath and take some water. Does anybody have a question for me specifically that I could answer to help guide where you might want to be doing some outreach somewhere in your community, in the greater world, or anywhere else? And I see we've got some really fun chat things happening. Okay, so I'll continue a little bit then until we see some questions on how we built up our ministry over in Kenya. And like I said, George had invited me to come speak, so I came for a month. And it did happen to be right after the post-election disturbances. So they had gone from a beautiful stone, it's like this dark blue gray stone. I finally got George to take me by it to show it to me. Beautiful building for the church, beautiful stone courtyard, beautiful stone buildings for their school and everything. And when the intertribal conflict happened, the man who owned that property said that they were going to have to stop allowing certain people from certain tribes coming, or he was afraid they would burn down, that the townspeople would burn down his entire building. And George, said no. He said, I'm going to minister to whoever comes, and I'm going to teach at school whoever shows up student wise. And so they moved to this little area that was, I wouldn't even call it a lawn. It was more of a dirt yard. And they built a timber and tin and thatched long school building and a big church open building with no windows, a dirt floor. And that's where they were having church, and that's where they were having school. And then we went around and did a pastor's conference. George and I did in the area where they live now, Kitale. We talked in Bungoma and Kitale and other places, and just started building up a following of ministers. And so the last week I was there, we actually did a week-long ministers conference up in the Bungoma, Kitale area. And ministers came 70 kilometers, they'd walk to come hear me speak. And one of the ministers who was there, this Pastor Williams, was the one who wound up organizing for myself and then Mike and Elizabeth Stamper to come and speak at these ordinations. So in the process, George had these 14 churches underneath him. He had the school. They had the hospital building that we were working on, well projects that had been dug and that for the lack of $100 part, weren't working, had dried up. So we would fix things like that. We'd work on helping them get vehicles. And then over the years, as things, donations had fallen off for various reasons, economic reasons happening in the world, we then, George would have a school and then it would wind up closing. He'd have a school and it'd end up winding closing. And at one point, things were going really well. And then his wife got pregnant with the twins and they wound up having some health issues before they were born. So she wound up losing her job as a labor and delivery nurse, oddly enough, in the maternity ward. And so, financially, the school got dissolved, debts had to be paid, the church dissolved. They moved, their family was scattered in 3 different cities with family members to try and get things back together. The kids missed about 2 years of school. We finally got things starting to stabilize and eventually managed to purchase a house for them. And so the gathering holds the mortgage and they're paying it off. But that housing stability made a huge difference in their world. And so when George and I would get together on our last 3 visits, we'd talk about the structure of what was going to actually help grow New Thought principles around the area. And what we realized was the people that needed the support the most were the ministers. And so we decided, no more school, no more church of our own. Instead, George goes, and I go with when I'm there, to different churches and speaks. He does a lot of pastoral counseling for ministers and their families, conflicts with their wives, conflicts with their parishioners, conflicts with their boards. No one can relate to that, right? From here, yes, show of hands. So when you can start to build that idea that, our job is to help spread New Thought teachings, period. And we do that in our everyday lives. And I do want to point out one thing. Oh, looks like we have a question. Do we have a question? Reverend Jeff said, I've found doing mental translation, yes, to be very helpful. As a former Pentecostalist, I've had to use their lingo to explain New Thought principles. Exactly, Jeff. Because it's like if you tell a story about the internet or a traffic jam, it's not going to translate. I told a story that I have in my book, Giving Thanks, to a group at a Nakuru church. And one guy came up to me afterwards. He was like, that's what I needed to hear. And it was a story about mules and how this farmer's mules had died. And so he kept praying for 4 new mules. And instead what he got was a tractor, to be able to give people a context, for the stories that you're telling, is incredibly helpful. So one thing I noticed when churches start to build, like with the CSL practitioners class, I did not have the good pleasure of meeting Reverend Connie Phelps in person. Connie Phelps founded CSL Kenya about 9 months after my second trip. And then there was a 10-year gap between 2010, well, almost 10 years, 2010 and 2019, when I went back 3 times. And, when she graduated this class of CSL practitioners, she really wanted those people to go out and start churches. And Christine, for example, she was already an ordained minister, but she has her own work that she does for an NGO. The ministers we work with, some work for the government, some are teachers, some are shopkeepers or clerks. I think Pastor George, out of the whole group of ministers that we work with over there, is the only one that has a full-time ministry. And his ministry is more a street ministry. He does translation work for us. They're doing regenerative farming, water projects. He leads all of this and is hands-on doing all of this. But he's, working day to day doing ministerial work, baptisms, funerals. And funerals there are not quite like funerals here. They're outdoors for the most part. He just did one most recently that was for a young man who no one else would come do the funeral. He'd been a gang member and had gotten, whether he was drunk or whatever, but he had gotten on his motorbike and had gotten hit by a tractor trailer. And halfway through the service, all of his gang men, the guys that had been in his gang, came looking for him, wanting to take the body and bury it themselves. And there was a lot of fear that came up. And Pastor George was able to use principles and just say, I've come here to bury your friend. And if you want to take him, that's fine, but you'll have to explain to his parents why you're taking him, or you can help me bury your friend. And by the end of the service, the new leader of this gang had actually asked George, would he please come and speak to the boys at their gang place, gang center, gang house, whatever it was. So think of the profound shift in reaching a group of people that you wouldn't normally think of as someone who would want a pastor in their midst. So this is the power that we have in our communities when we meet people where they're at. It's like what Mike Stamper was talking about, listening to people, finding out what they truly need, what they truly want, what's going to be most effective for them and most helpful for them. So when we realized that housing stability was going to be a game changer, because the reason I had a 10-year gap was we were putting every dollar we raised toward getting and keeping kids in school. And right now we've got 6 children. One is actively in her 3rd year of university. There is one boy who had his first 2 semesters of university and he's waiting to get back in. The next girl just graduated from high school at the age of 19 or 20, I'm sorry. And so she's waiting to go into nursing school. The next child is in high school, and then the twins are in elementary school. And then we have Pastor Evans, who, God bless him, he and his family live on the property of the hospital. They live inside the hospital, as I told you, no windows, no running water, no electricity, no doors, you name it. And they have adopted a little girl who's an orphan. So in addition to their children, they've got 7 children there. And we've just started being able to start giving funds to help them create sustainability. But we're doing it through regenerative farming, home ownership, or in this case, they have a place to live that they don't have to pay rent on, so they can't get kicked out of it. Water projects, solar, anything that's going to be a recurring expense, we work hard on making them as self-sustaining as possible so that they can then go out and earn more money and be able to spread these principles. So instead of counting, like how many children we have in a church or in a school, we're counting how many ministers we can reach. Because when we reach the ministers and we teach teach them these principles. So when I go and speak, or George now goes and speaks, they're learning these principles. They call them elevation churches. And there's a wonderful church in Nakuru that I spoke at briefly on my last trip. I'm looking forward to speaking there again on my next trip, where that's what these principles are. They're elevation teachings. So the more we reach the ministers, now you've got one new person reaching several hundred people, or if it's a small church, reaching 35 people. A lot of the unity churches I've spoken at were 35 to 50 people. So imagine that what we're doing is laying a foundation to teach the people in the communities. So whether we're teaching just a couple of 25-year-olds or you're teaching just a couple of people from the community who are coming to a parenting class or something else, you're making a huge difference. I see we've got another question. Oh, this is just Donna Christine talking about Pastor George is an incredible individual. She says, amid the amazing blessings of my visit to Kenya was sitting with Pastor George and learning together. Reverend Connie invited us to walk in the minister's parade during the closing session of the CSL Kenya Vision 2020. The experience certainly was a vision. Yes, it was. Thank you, Donna Christine. I'm so glad that you have had that experience. I know a lot of the ministers who heard George speak are very excited that he is coming to America. And we already have 6 letters, I think, from Unity and CSL churches to have him come speak all across the country, New York, California, Colorado, Florida. So we're very excited. But are there any other questions? I know I'm just kind of prattling on, but I'm very, very enthusiastic. I can't read who said it. Oh, Carolyn did. I love the approach of meeting people where they are instead of imposing a change to what we think their life ought to be. Through love and kindness, I have drawn you. You have demonstrated how to carry new thought into the place where the principles are demonstrated and accepted. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Carolyn. Somebody posted something about my blog. What would Paula say? And Reverend Okan Obong, I'm very touched at your work in Kenya. I really wish I could partner this in Nigeria. Absolutely. It's so easy to do this. What language do they speak? And do I speak the language, and how do I communicate? Asante sana, that means thank you very much. Bwana Esufiwe, Jesus is Lord. Yesu ni Bwana, sorry, is Jesus is Lord. Bwana Esufiwe is God is all. They speak English and Swahili. Those are the 2 formal official languages of Kenya. Many also speak Busumu. Please, George, tell me I pronounced that right. They speak a tribal language. So George speaks English, Swahili, and Busumu. A lot of folks in Kenya just speak the tribal language if they're from very rural areas. George has always traveled with me as my translator. So even though he speaks English, he usually does the sermons that he does in Swahili, and I do sermons in English. And if I'm there, someone will always translate to Swahili so that I can understand it, what the sermon is that's being taught. But yeah, it's incredibly easy to communicate with folks in Kenya. And, you know, love communicates everything. If you go to some of the blog posts and things on thevillagegathering.com site and some of the past videos and things we've had, there's a wonderful video of me bringing a chicken to Pastor George's mom and us dancing together, and she loves to tickle me. She loves to tickle all of her children and grandchildren. So, and you know, you can just tell it, you know, we can speak without understanding each other. You know, love is a universal language. But yeah, we work very hard on the things that we're doing, and we speak mostly English and some Swahili. And I do have taskmasters, so I've been working on my Swahili because mojo, bili, tatu, not ene, tano, that's 5. If I don't keep practicing, there are twins that are my school teachers there who take me to task for not having learned my vocabulary words. I know the important vocabulary words. Chapati. It's like naan, 10 times better, but that is my nickname, Mama Chapati. It's a homemade bread that they make that's outstanding. If you've never had it, you got to come to Kenya with me just so that you can experience chapati. So I will say that. I've got another question here. What do you have to do within yourself to be able to minister to the people in the African countries? What do you do to prepare? Joanna, that is an awesome question. Okay, so when I first came to Kenya, I followed, you know, I was like, do I teach the principles, practice the principles I teach of prosperity? And so I went over with just my visa entrance fee. And so a lot of fears came up when I realized that I was in a situation where I knew no one. I didn't know where I was. And, you know, being the planner that I was, I had forgotten to register with the embassy. So no one knew where I was. And, you know, new thought sometimes is thought of as witchcraft. You know, proof you manifested something, you know. And so there was a minister, and I want to say it was Texas, who started sharing with he had done work in Kenya, didn't like the fact that I was now working in Kenya, and started sharing with people that I was a witch. And he was a Pentecostal minister. Now, as luck would have it, of course, I'm hooked in with a lot of different religions because of my mediation work. And so 2 dear friends of mine, their father was an elder in the Pentecostal church. So I reached out to them and I said, hey, can you have your dad talk to this guy? Because they knew me, they were family friends. We'd known each other for, many, many years. And so their dad did. He reached out to him and he said, you have to stop this. But there was a time when basically I had, little escorts everywhere I went to make sure that I was not harmed. So your fear is the biggest thing that you have to overcome. The other thing is patience. Okay. I remember when Mike and Elizabeth were traveling with me and we were staying at a hotel in Nairobi, and we had to go all the way across town, which could be an hour to 3-hour trip, to get to the big church where we were doing the ordination workshops. It was a 2 or 3 day event that we were doing. And, George would be like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And then, we'd come down to the lobby and they're looking at their watches and it's been an hour, and to get people to understand Kenya time means you get there when you get there. Nothing ever happens on time. So the concept of, not stopping to help someone just so that you won't be late is completely foreign to Kenyans. There are times when, we would get home from speaking at 2 or 3 different churches. It could be 1 a.m, and they would wait dinner for us, for George and I. So one of the things is patience. The other is recognizing that our priorities are not always other people's priorities. So if we decided that we were going to go fix the car or something, that money might be better put towards something else. Or if someone wanted to buy a new cow, is that the best use of the funds? And to help them understand, why do they want to do something? Because once we can get to the bottom of the why, then we can brainstorm other solutions to keep finding something that will work. The other thing is overcoming the, I thought Americans, especially Midwesterners, were bad at wanting to please everybody. But the truth is, in Kenya, they're so intent on making sure that you're okay and you're happy that they will give you their last whatever that they have. When I was speaking my first trip, the last Sunday was my birthday, and we had gone into these homes where people had lost everything. They had a little clothesline with some colorful fabric that was dividing the sleeping areas from the living room where they also cooked and ate. And they might have 2 enamel bowls for 6 people. And on my last Sunday that I was there, people brought in little packages wrapped up in newspaper and stuff. And this one family who I knew what they had like 4 bowls for 8 people. They gave me 2 of their enamel bowls. And you have to be willing to accept the gifts that are given to you. And also recognize, if I'm going to give you a gift in Kenya, I'm not going to put any strings on it. Use this for what you think is best. I might give some guidance of, if you use it to buy this or do this thing, it'll move forward something, which is how we've created sustainability in the farming there. It's how we've worked and set up the solar in the home and set up the water now, and working on getting a solar pump, to make things so that it improves the quality of life. So I hope that answers your question. If not, please ask a clarifying question. But that's the biggest thing, to me at least, is to be able to prepare for that. You have to be willing to recognize that every poverty you've ever encountered in the United States can't even hold a candle to what you'll see. And I encourage people, don't, stay in the missionary kind of areas and stuff. Don't only interact with other missionaries. I met people after my 3rd trip, I think, who'd been over there for 3 or 4 years, and they said, yeah, we're coming home from Kenya, and we didn't really ever get to know the people. They never really opened up to us and stuff. And I said, well, where were you living? Well, they were living in an expat community. when I tour, if I'm staying at a hotel, I'm not staying at the tourist hotels. I'm staying at the hotels that middle-class Kenyans stay at. Those are my favorite places. They've got the best food too. But it's recognizing, if you're going to work with the people, be one with the people. Practice the principles, because that's how, learn Swahili. Mine might be rusty, and kesho means tomorrow. Tosha means enough. That's a good one to know. But to start to learn and recognize phrases and things so that you can start communicating with people. Because yes, they speak English, but they're much more likely, it's like the French, they're much more likely to interact with you and be excited about spending time with you if you actually make an attempt to speak their language. So I like that idea a lot. Sorry, I'm reading the comments. Thank you, Mike. I'm glad you like my hair. Please give Elizabeth my love. But yes, so that's what we're doing, is we're creating a way to spread the New Thought principles. Unity Church of Cumberland's, they had a very active outreach to the local college. Here you've got students that are away from home, so they'd invite them to their birthday celebrations each month, where they have big fellowship and everything. They do outreach at the campus itself. So finding ways to connect with your community, because that's all it is. This is a community that is so desperately hungry for New Thought principles. I wish I had the link. There's a beautiful talk that Connie Phelps did. I might have mentioned it in one of my blog posts on my personal page, paulalanguthryan.com. But I can find it again and post it somewhere for INTA if they like, where she talks about how ripe Kenyans are for manifesting. They set a goal, they know what they want to create, and using the principles, they put us to shame. Make us look like, we're riding our tricycles, they're off on a snowmobile, boom, or a rocket ship, creating what it is they want to create in their lives. So that's a big thing. Who else we got that wants to have a question, a comment, a clarification? Oh, I got a new question. I love questions. Ooh, did I have to work on my internalized racism in order not to go with the white savior idea? Interestingly enough, so my mom is part Seneca. My dad was always very big on everybody's equal. He had no discrimination in his hiring practices. He owned a construction company. If you were a good worker, you got paid top dollar. He could care less about anything else. And so I don't know that was such a big issue for me. And it's weird because, I don't see myself. I don't look in the mirror very often. So once I was in Kenya, I was Kenyan. And children, they call, it was originally meant Europeans, but basically it stands for white people now, Mzungu. And I was there a month, and as far as I know, I was the only white person I ever saw there. I don't remember ever seeing a white person, except for there was a couple who were Australian when we were up doing the ministers conference, and all of a sudden this couple just comes rushing over and talking to me. And Pastor George comes out of the store where he was getting the sodas after the gas, and he goes, "Do you know them?" And I'm like, "No, I've never seen them before in my life." And he was like, "Well, they were acting like you knew them, like they were your best friends or something." And I'm like, maybe they hadn't seen another white person all month. I don't know. But toward the end of the trip, some kids would point out and go, "Mzungu, Mzungu." And all of George's kids would laugh at me because I'd turn around, because I assumed there was a white person behind me, because they couldn't possibly be talking to me because I was Kenyan at that point. So I don't know if that helps answer the question or not. But other people that have gone with me, have been like relieved, like, "Oh, there's a white person." I've had to occasionally point out that was actually an Indian person in Mombasa. It was just a lighter skinned person than they'd seen the whole trip. But yeah, it's interesting because I think because so much of Kenya is just black, all different shades of brownness and black, that the novelty of white people seems to be more, it's not even like reverse racism or anything. It's just we're a novelty. But I never felt, my thing wasn't feeling threatened. I just take everyone at face value as being an amazing child of God. And so I wouldn't even notice if someone might have untoward motives, I guess. And so Pastor George and the other folks and even the little kids would just sort of grab my hands and steer me away from people that were looking to get something that necessarily wasn't legal, shall we just say. So I hope that answers the question. And yes, I do know there is a CSL community there. Thank you, Carolyn, for letting me point this. So Gwen Davis and Barbara, I do not remember her last name. And this is the beautiful thing about, you know, INTA is because we interconnect all of the different branches. When Connie passed away, when she came back to Canada, she passed away, but they're keeping the ministry alive by teaching online classes. I know Christine is taking classes, Christine, over in Kenya. And so when it looked like I was going to be able to come back, I've changed my travel plans 3 times because I was flying through London on British Airways and they kept canceling every time they'd have to close down. So now I'm going back on Lufthansa and United in November of this year. But what they did was they sent me some materials for their office, books, things that they needed for the ministry there to get to the students. And we haven't been able to get them there yet, but soon we will. So yes, we will share some stuff about Connie's stuff. Barbara Samuel, thank you, Donna Christine. Do I have any experience with tribalism in Kenya? Yes, thank you, Marlene. I don't know you. Nice to meet you, Marlene. So part of the work that I do in Kenya is also with an organization called the Kenya Pastoralists Network. And there's this wonderful gentleman named Lantano Naabala that I work with over there. And Mike and Elizabeth Stamper were with me when we went to a meeting there, and then we went up to Thompson's Falls. So they do work with intertribal conflicts. So the Samburu, the Poket, and the Turkana. And what they do is Lantano was a son of a chieftain of his tribe. And he had moved to Nairobi and you know, is a businessman, and other people in their 30s, you know, that were business people, men and women, realized that these tribes were fighting over very scarce resources in order for their grazing. They're pastoralists, so they've got to bring their cows and goats and sheeps, you know, around to where there's water and where there's green growth. And so they were killing each other, and they hadn't gone a month for like 30 years without somebody killing somebody else. And they decided, you know what? We live in Nairobi. We're from these 3 different tribes and we're all friends. So what can we do to change that? So Lantano taught himself mediation basically and started going out into this high conflict area with other people in his group. USAID was a part of their organization, was supporting it. And they would go out and put together these gatherings where they would reach out to the mothers of the different tribes, because the interesting thing is, as the drought moves, as the locusts move, the tribes that are conflicting with each other change. And so what happens is he would bring together the mothers and say, didn't your sons used to play together? And so we'd have these huge feasts and be able to create peace. And other than a small period of time in the last 15 years where the ministries, that's the political departments in Kenya, decided that they could handle it best. And then something horrible happened, and actually one of the ministers was killed when they realized that perhaps Lantano's organization knew better on how to handle things. And so that's the biggest connection with tribalism. I have, of course, I tend to talk fast, and my Swahili is very rudimentary. So I was once in a grocery store, and this gentleman came up to me and started talking to me in a tribal language I'd never heard before, because he thought I was speaking his tribal language. So, okay, next question. Oh, it was one that was dismissed. Oh, that was another statement. Thank you, Donna Christine. What else we got? Ooh, how can we best support you in your work in Kenya? Come join us. Come on a service safari with me, or donations of mileage. We just got a generous donation from an estate that is paying for mileage for George to travel back and forth for the next few years so we can move things forward. Help sponsor a child. One of the biggest things is kids wind up not being able to get out of the poverty if they can't get a college education. And a lot of times the schools we can get them into are their community schools, which aren't always the best. You know, they might have one teacher who speaks English. So we just now got one boy up into a higher level school where he does have a better chance of possibly getting a scholarship to come do college in the United States or in England if it opens, to help support other children, help us with the water projects. That's a big thing. If we can get a new deep well built and dug at the hospital, that would serve the whole community. There used to be one across the street at the house that Pastor Evans and his wife Eveline were renting that eventually went dry. That's the one that we got a part for and got going again back in 2010, but it did eventually go dry. So anything like that. So if you go to thevillagegathering.com, I know we need to update from this year the projects that are most important right now, or call me. I'll be glad to walk you through what projects are most important right now. But thank you for asking that question. What else should we talk about? Oh my gosh, we're almost out of time. We got 6 minutes. Who has questions? A question. Is there still a Peace Corps? I do not even know that, Marlene. It's weird. There's a beautiful organization from Canada that was called Organics for Orphans right there in Katali. And now it's called Thrive. It was founded by the people who do, I'm not going to remember the name of the company, but it's a magnesium drink. And they have it here in the United States, but there's a Canada branch of it. So most of the folks that I've met from NGOs have been either from Australia or Canada. And I know Connie Phelps was from Canada, the CSL minister. I've never run into an American in Kenya. There might be some in the cities, closer to Nairobi, but not in the areas that I work in. Do I have any media videos we can share to raise awareness of your work? Oh, thank you, Dr. Robert. Not yet, but we're working on that. We should have one in the next month or so. We did get great video footage the last couple of times, and with the projects that have been going on this year, they got some great videos. So thank you. We'll let you know.
Well, Reverend Paula, you have done it in a phenomenal way, an exciting way, helping us to see how to make a difference. And someone said, well, I was going to ask when I came back on, the questions were going, I said, oh, this is great, that I wrote, not unlike Reverend Stamper, Ministry of Presence, when you said, meet them where they are. I've spent several summers in Africa doing land churches and foundations. And it's really important. The challenge comes when I come with an agenda, as Reverend Stamper mentioned about his ministry. If I come open, and so I'm totally excited about what you're doing in Kenya. I haven't been in Kenya, I've been in about 8 or 9 countries, but I'm gonna talk with you, and we're gonna talk about Kenya. So thank you so much, because what you have helped us to see is how the truth principles are beyond, off the paper and into your life, and making a difference in the lives of so many others. We thank you, we love you, and absolutely, we bless you, absolutely. Thank you.
I love you guys. Thank you for this conference. You guys did an amazing job as fellow board members. I just want to toot your horns.
I appreciate that. And so we're going to move into, we're not going to take a break, we're going to just move into the closing, because we are high right now with the joy and the information and the inspiration from Paula. We can just move in. I want to thank the presenters who have really brought to us today, Reverend Michael, Reverend Lola, Dr. Richard, and Reverend Paula, and thank you for helping us to see how new thought. We take it, we learned yesterday how to care for ourselves, and now we have heard some really very different ways and thoughts about making a difference. So we just, our hearts are full for your presentations, for your examples, for letting us connect with you after the conference is over. Thank you for helping us see how we can make a difference. Also, I want to offer continued gratitude to Karen Drucker, who allowed us to use her music today to make sure we were just kind of surrounded with love and joy and peace as her music can do. So Karen, wherever you are, know that we love you. And I invite all of those who are listening to go to KarenDrucker.com, www.KarenDrucker.com, and to support and buy the music, and not even to support Karen, to support yourself, whether you need it for healing, whether you need it to celebrate. You do really want to enjoy the music of Karen Drucker. So go to www.KarenDrucker.com. I think it's in the chat. You can go there and purchase her music. It's really an opportunity for us as we close out that to donate to INTA, to absolutely enable INTA to do what its mission has been. And I want to just read, if I could read this. Our vision since 1914 is to unify and strengthen new thought in the world, and to support the spiritual awakening of each member of the family of humanity through teaching the principles of one's inseparable oneness with God, the good. We have heard today from our presenters how important it is for us to really realize our oneness with each other, our oneness with God. So I invite each of you to you click the donate button on newthoughtevents.org, click the donate button on our website, or use PayPal. It's on the screen, and make a donation to INTA. Also, I want to mention, we have said it several times, and we even brought the chairwoman of the Congress 2021 with us to help understand. If you register by midnight today, there's a 25% discount. And I believe the registration was in the chat link. So the link was in the chat, so that if you want to use that, or you can go to the website and register for the 2021 INTA Congress for a 25% discount if you do it by end of today, by midnight. We've done a lot. I have to, it's my pleasure. I'm so excited to do this right now. I've got to have all of you all put thank you, Reverend Dale, in the chat, everybody. And I need to Reverend Dale to show his face. Reverend Dale, are you prepared to show your face? He's been the
Absolutely.
There you go. Yay! He has been the man. I don't want to call him the whiz, because the whiz turned out to be fake, but indeed he is a man behind the scenes. He is our technical guru, our technical expert. He has helped us. And it has gone without a hitch, a glitch, or nothing. So Reverend Dale Worley, we want to thank you. We want to bless you. We love you as an INTA board member. We love you as a senior minister of Unity of Savannah. But we really love you as a technical expert. So thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's been my pleasure. I've learned so much. I've had a really great time, and I have been so lifted up by all the presenters. Oh my goodness. I have a lot to contemplate, to pray about, to work on. So thank you, everybody. And for all the people that signed up, we had, I don't know, 115 people, I think, that signed up for this event. So it was just, we're very happy, and we really appreciate everybody that spent time with us today and yesterday.
Let them know too that all the conference workshops, I was going to say it, but maybe are recorded and available on the Facebook.
Absolutely. If you go to our Facebook page, look for International New Thought Alliance on Facebook, and I'll put it in the chat. Everything from today and yesterday is recorded on Facebook. And also, I started and stopped the Facebook stream between every workshop. So we have each separate workshop. Our goal is to have those also on our YouTube channel and on our website. So we'll let you know when that comes up. And thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Please share with your friends.
Yes, and the folks are telling you thank you, Reverend Dale. They know good work when they see it. they know good love and good care that you've given to each
Woo.
of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And in addition to Reverend Dale, I want to thank and give lots of gratitude to all the INTA board members. You see, you didn't see all of them necessarily, but it is with their support that we've been able to do this, and their support that the INTA mission continues on and is moving forward and being implemented. So INTA board members, I want to thank each and every one of you and ask just your support just continues on. Ask that you recognize how wonderful you are and know that indeed you are a blessing. You are a blessing. And so,
and hasn't Reverend Jackie been like the host with the most? Like, she kept us rolling, kept us going. Thank you for
oh,
being the face of our conference. You did a great job, and we appreciate you.
I
And
appreciate
Jackie
you.
led the team that
Ah,
put all this together. And we also want to say hi to Nancy Hazard, who she actually had the idea, started the ball rolling, and then she said, "Hey, Jackie."
and I love Nancy because our team, our committee was absolutely, it's wonderful because it was a trinity. It was three of us. And indeed, it worked out in as spiritual and as mystical as any trinity I've ever thought about. So Nancy, Dale, and Jackie, there you go. Thank you, Dale. Thank you. And now we're gonna come to the end, unless there's something I've missed. I want to bring our president. He opened us up. He started us, Reverend Dr. Tim Stewart, and he is going to, if he will, pull it all together, put the ribbon around it, send us on our way with a wonderful and warm prayer. Dr. Tim.
All right. Thank you so much, Reverend Jackie. And I'm just going to start by saying that, you've kind of praised each other, but as president of the board, I want to tell you how proud I am and how grateful I am for all the hard work that you have put into this, that Reverend Dale has put into it, Reverend Dr. Nancy. The three of you have made this fabulous team. And in 2019, we had our Congress in Nashville, and it was a really, really great event. And someone complimented me, and I was the chairperson, and I said, I found the secret. If you want to look good, surround yourself with good people. Yeah. So I'll have you three stand around me all the time. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And this has been just an amazing event. Yesterday, we were talking about self-care, and it is my prayer today that you will each take that to heart. Not just something that we heard that inspired us for a few minutes along the way, or that gave us that idea that we wrote down that we'll notice 6 months from now, but ideas that allow us to right now begin showing that self-love and self-care, allowing us to be all that we really can be, being our very best, letting the divine flow come through us. And that only happens when we are doing that. And today, I'm looking up here. I don't think he's still on with us, but Reverend Stamper, Reverend Michael Stamper, just was so amazing this morning. And I heard what he said. And if you've been in ministry very long, you'll hear something you think, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. And sometimes it's just amazing that we have this. I believe it's life-changing, and I'm also one of these people who's a little sticky about my words sometimes. I try to not use the word I hope. Instead, I'll try to use I trust or I know. And I know that this has been a blessing to you. It is something that has been a blessing to us, the INTA, to be able to do this and to offer this to everyone. So with that having been said, I remind you that everything about our experience in life, we are calling We are calling into that infinite possibility. We're calling into the infinite goodness of God, and we call forth that experience that we have. And it's not like something that gets an order wrong. Everything is always as we're calling it. So let us use this that we've had these past few days to call forth an even greater expression of good. So join me now as I know this one presence that is everything that I am, everything that we are, a presence that is the essence of all that is. And right now, as I speak this word, I bless each and every person here. As we've heard the wonderful music, that wonderful song that is one of my favorites, You Are the Face of God. Knowing today that each and every person here is that face of God shining, and that the words that we've heard, the workshops, the presenters, all of this has been there to enrich and to empower us in our journey and what we do. That we indeed not only can, but that we are making a difference, meeting people where they are. All of these things, I know that we allow them to become part of who we are and how we respond in this world. I know that each ministry is blessed that's here. And today, for this entire world, where there is that thing that may seem that it's anger or violence, I speak the word of peace. Where there seems to be hatred or discord, I speak the word of love. And in this conference, we've talked about issues of race. And for where there are those places where racism has hidden itself, I speak this word of letting it be exposed to the light of love that destroys any form of racism and brings forth a love and an honor and a respect, recognizing that we are really all that one. I am grateful for this. I am so grateful for all of it. I say thank you, God, as I simply release this, knowing it's already so, and so it is, and amen and amen. Again, thank you all for being here. Remember the ability to sign up for our Congress in July. We would love to see you there, and we look forward to it. Again, thank you. Thank you, Reverend Jackie, Reverend Dale, Reverend Nancy. Thank you.
You are a part of me. You are the face of God. 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 La luce di Dio. You are the face of God. The face of God. You are the face of God. L'image de Dieu. You are the face of God. The face of God. You are the face of God. La luce de Dio. You are the face of God. The face of God. You are the face of God.